Trial version. Trial version.
Testing, testing. All right, here we go. Welcome, guys. We are going to be streaming an interesting game here. This is actually the finals of the UK Online League. So this is the, there's been an online tournament. They've been playing it in the UK, or the UK Discord has been coordinating the tournament at the very least. And this is the first game in that event. So, or I'm sorry, this is the last game in that event. So it's single elims. So I'm going to pause it real here so I can set the scene. You gotta pause it here so I can set the scene a little more. So the this is the last game in the overall event. We've been playing through. I believe I showed some of the previous games from this on stream, including my game against Slidemo in the semifinals. But now it's on to the finals. I have my Dorinthea deck. This is very different from the deck that I've been playing in Skirmish recently. So I have been playing a very tall Dorinthea that's designed to get through Ira's defenses. This deck is almost the opposite. Instead of playing a very tall Dorinthea, I'm playing a very wide Dorinthea. So this is a deck that is built to get around the big defense reactions that we see with cards like Unmovable and Staunch Response from Guardian, from Mechanologist, from the decks that are going to more of a control orientation. So instead of going really tall, I'm going really wide, and we're going to see how that goes. I'm playing against BigMedSi. BigMedSi. I don't know exactly what he is running this time. I have not seen his previous games. I know he's on Katsu, but I don't know if it's going to be more control or more aggro, and we're going to have to see. He's leading off here with a copy of Surging Strike Yellow, so that is going to come in for 4. And 4 with Go Again, and if this hits, it's going to potentially do some damage. So let's see how I respond. I believe he is going first here. And now it is on to me to see how to defend against this thing. All right, so this is 4 with Go Again. If he hits, he'll be able to use Katsu's ability to search for something. He did have to pitch 2 cards to do this, which indicates that it's probably not all that good. He doesn't probably have that much follow-up. The best case scenario for him would be to immediately have a red Whelming Gust Wave, probably. I decide I'm just going to block it out, so I block for 5. That will stop this attack completely, blocking 5 against 4, and he decides to just arsenal his remaining card. So I didn't take any damage on the first turn. He does get the first counter on his Tunic, and he does get to arsenal, but, didn't manage to sneak in there with Kadachi or do something big. Based on what I saw there, I think it's quite possible that he didn't actually have a good card to pitch to use the Kadachi. So one problem with Ninja is that you do need to have, ideally, a blue 0-cost card to pitch in order to swing those Kadachi and give them Go Again. Often you can chip in a little bit of damage even on the first turn from that first Kadachi swing, which your opponent might let in the hopes of having stuff saved for defense if you do have a big combo. But, yeah. Alright, so in this case, I'm going to go for the classic, just basic Dawnblade swing, coming in for 3. And I really have a lot of options here in terms of doing other attacks, other tricks. So as you can see, I have a Ravenous Rabble in my hand, a Flock of the Featherwalkers, and a Glint. So with this hand, I've decided I'm going to swing. What I'm hoping is that he does a block, I play Glint to get a card draw and a Go Again, and then I can potentially either play both the Ravenous Rabble and the Flock, or maybe just the Flock. In this case, he doesn't block, I do play the Glint. So I now have the Go Again. Don't get the card draw from it, so that is unfortunate. But he has a Flick Flack for me. It's actually a red Flick Flack, which I don't like seeing. If the next card you defend with this turn is a card with combo, it gains +2. So that does mean that it's going to be negative for my next attack. But I am still going to throw out a Flock of the Featherwalkers for 5, and I reveal the Ravenous Rabble. So this is coming in for 5 damage, and it does give me the Quicken token, which I'm going to be able to use in order to give my next attack Go Again. Threatening 5 damage. He can block with a combo card and negate this attack, and we do see him doing that. And I'm going to be able to arsenal the Ravenous Rabble, so I didn't actually do any damage to him. I did get a card out of his hand and got him to use one of his defense reactions, though, and now I will have that Quicken token for the next turn, as well as a card in arsenal, but let's see what he's going to do to threaten me. 40 life to 40 life, neither player having landed a hit yet, which is a little surprising since we're both playing, I think, at least somewhat aggressive decks, but sometimes that's the way that the game can go. So let's see what he does on this second turn, and his first real turn of being able to be aggressive in a way that can hurt my tempo. So because tempo is often more important than damage, you can find yourself in one of these situations where the tempo situation can be important enough that if you're going first, the second turn is often your first like real attack, assuming that you can't do a big dominate or intimidate attack or anything like that. Okay, so he's coming in. I let the first Kadachi hit me. Then the second Kadachi coming in for 1. I block it with my refraction bolters there, so that's going to allow me to potentially use the refraction bolters for that go again without wasting the armor. He then is going to come in with a leg tap for 4 with go again, so there is the potential for him to have a Mask of Momentum trigger here if I hadn't blocked the second Kadachi, but because I had, this leg tap is just damage. There is the chance that he'll be able to trigger his Katsu ability to get a rising knee thrust and combo with it, but even that is honestly not all that threatening. It's just damage. So in these circumstances, I think I'm not really that afraid of this leg tap, quite frankly. Looking at my hand, I have definitely some offensive options. I know that I decided that I'm just going to take it. So I take the 4 damage and he arsenals. So I'm in a spot now where I have some pretty good offensive options. I do have the Command and Conquers in hand. I have the Go Again from that copy of Quicken. So in this situation, one thing I could, for instance, pitch and throw out a Dawnblade Swing for 3, follow it up with that Ravenous Rabble, and then follow that up by pitching my 2 remaining cards and playing a Command and Conquer. So I'm thinking about what card to pitch here. There are a few options. So if I pitch the Command and Conquer, it does signal that I potentially have another Command and Conquer, because otherwise why would I pitch that? So that's one thing to think about. If I pitch the Steelblade Supremacy, there's just a few considerations in terms of like what the best pitch is. I don't know exactly what's right here. I think I don't want to pitch Command and Conquer. I should have probably pitched Flock instead of Supremacy here, though, because the Flock is not playable anymore. But I could be wrong. It's not as if the Supremacy is really going to be that playable either. Iron Cairo in chat says, Katsu, ninja but with a soul. I take it you are not a great fan of the Ira decks, Iron Cairo. Is that fair to say? Anyway, my Dawnblade is coming in for 3 with go again. I do think that Katsu is much more of the classic ninja gameplay of trying to actually do the combos, whereas Ira has the combos as a very secondary thing, and it's a little weird to see a hero that more or less ignores her class mechanic being that strong. But then again, I don't know, Kasai definitely uses Reprise a lot less than Dorinthea in my experience. So he goes for a huge overblock, and I love to see this. So he overblocks this to 7. Or, I'm sorry, no, he overblocks it to 6. I come in with the Ravenous Rabble, and I believe it's coming in for 4. And Iron Cairo says, well, I'm Bravo, so Bravo. Yeah, makes sense. How do you find Bravo does against Katsu in the classic constructed environment? That's a matchup that I'm not very familiar with. Okay, so then I land for 4 damage there, and then I do the double pitch and throw out the CNC. So this has been a very threatening turn. I'm happy that he overblocked that first swing, because now it means that my next attack landed, and now this CNC is threatening 6 damage. And if he doesn't go for a big block, I'm actually going to be able to get that in and do a I'm going to be able to get that in and destroy the card that he has in Arsenal. And given that he's playing a ninja with at least some aggro, he might not have the stuff that it takes to block it. And it looks like he doesn't. Yeah, he blocks, but he can only block 5. He takes 1 damage and loses his Arsenal card, which was another copy of Surging Strike. So that was a very good turn for me. Not only did I do 5 damage, but I knocked every single card out of his hand and his Arsenal card, which means that my next turn is going to be just pure tempo in my advantage. I'm going to be able to attack with a 4-card hand. So something weird happens there, and the Quicken token goes under the deck. I think just a bug with the end turn button there. So then I'm going to draw on up. He draws on up on his turn, but he doesn't really have anything to do other than take his Tunic. I take my Tunic, and then we're going to see what happens here. I have a Scar for a Scar in hand, which it doesn't have go again because we have the same life total. I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing this Dawnblade swing with Spoils of War, coming in for 5 go again. If it hits, I will get 2 copper tokens. And if he blocks this out, I can then play the Scar for a Scar that I have in hand just for 4 damage with the unconditional go again. Iron Cairo says, pretty 50-50 balanced-wise. I haven't lost one to him, but the games always feel like they're determined by play choice, not one deck being stronger than the other. That's in reference to the Katsu Bravo matchup, I believe. So yeah, that's not a matchup I'm as familiar with. I do play Katsu sometimes in Constructed, but he is definitely not as familiar a character. And so BigMedSi, once again going for a big block. He goes for the overblock there, overblocking, I believe that's a block 8 against my 5. So I could actually get in and hit him by playing that Singing Steelblade, but I decided that I'm going to save it. I'm just going to play the Scar for a Scar for 4, and he's going to have to either take 4 damage or use his last card. He opts to take the 4 damage, so then I'm going to put the Singing Steelblade in Arsenal for a bigger turn later on. Now I could have tried to push through and try to score the hit there, but I think what I did there is pretty solid. I was a little worried about maybe clogging Arsenal with the Scar for a Scar if I didn't go for that. I guess I could have played. No, I would have had to pitch it probably. Yeah, because I would have had to go Iron Song Response, but I'm keeping up the attack reactions here. All right, so now he has a single card in hand. He has his 2 Kadachi. He's not Ira, though, so even if he pitches blue and does his 2 Kadachi, that's just 2 damage instead of 3, which is significantly worse. Ira's consistency is really strong. He opts to just Arsenal pass. That means that I have an opportunity to go for something bigger. I do still have that copy of the... Singing Steelblade and Arsenal, which is potentially going to allow me to do something big. So I go for a Iron Song... or a Steelblade Supremacy plus Dawnblade swinging in for 5. If it hits, I'll draw a card. My hope is that he blocks to exactly 5, at which point I can play the Singing Steelblade that I have in Arsenal into a Glint, and then even if he has a defense reaction, I will then be able to follow that up by just playing my Potion and putting the Springboard Somersault in Arsenal, which is still quite a good turn. And then if he doesn't have a defense reaction, I'll get the card draw and then attack again to threaten that token. So I think this is a situation where I'm feeling pretty good. Now, the thing that would be really negative would be if he had a big defense reaction. In particular, if he had a big unmovable in Arsenal at this time, that would not be what I wanted to see, as he could potentially shut down this whole attack without activating my Reprise and allowing that Singing Steelblade to get me the Glint that I'm looking for. If he doesn't block this first one, I'll probably hit him and then use my Refraction Bolters for the go again, as I still have not used that. Conserving your Refraction Bolters for later in the game is often good, but at the same time, it really synergizes well with Steelblade Supremacy if that's the way that you have to play it. So he's going for a double block. He's blocking up to 6. So one thing that I could do is I could go for the Singing Steelblade into a attack reaction here. So I could do like Singing Steelblade into Iron Song Response, which would then get me enough damage to get through. But if he has a defense reaction to stop me, he will be able to stop the attack there. I could also go for the Glint, which would allow me to play the Potion afterwards, and if I luckily top deck an attack reaction, I can push through. So we're going to see which way this goes. I go for the Singing Steelblade here. So searching the deck, and I think I may still be deciding which way I want to do. So the Glint is a little safer. It's safer for getting value because I know I'll be able to Glint into the Potion. On the other hand, if I Glint into the Iron Song Response, it's going to make him play that defense reaction if he has it. So right now, he's defending 6, and I am at exactly 6, I believe. I end up going with a red Iron Song Response in case he has one of the smaller Flick Flacks or other defense reactions. There's an argument to be made to go for the blue Iron Song Response here to just sneak in by 1 and make the defense reaction less efficient, but I'm worried that a small defense reaction might stop me. However, that is something that's more common from the Ira decks. I do score my hit, so I'm going to get my card draw, and then I'm going to use my Refraction Bolters for the go again. So very favorable there. He did not have the defense reaction. I have Dorinthea's ability, I have the card draw, I have the Refraction Bolters, and now I do also have the Glint in hand, which is really sweet. Because it does mean that I'm going to be able to pitch, use my bolters, or use my bracers, and then swing again. So this second swing is actually for 6 because it also has the Steelblade Supremacy. So this is actually strength 6, and if it hits, draw a card. And I intend to Glint and play my Potion, which is putting me in a really good spot here. Generally, having these big turns with Steelblade Supremacy is one of the most explosive things that can happen from the Warrior deck, and it looks like I'm going to be able to do that. So I'm pretty happy about this scenario, and we're going to see how BigMedSi responds. He does have the 2 cards in hand and 1 in arsenal, but at this point I surmise that he likely does not have a defense reaction, or he would have played it to try to stop my previous attack. On the other hand, it's possible that he was letting me get it in order to make me use my refraction bolters. I think in some cases it can be a good idea to be like, okay, let's, I'll make him play it. It'll be a little worse for me, but it will make it so that he doesn't have that option later in the game. However, I probably would not do that I probably would not do that with the Steelblade Supremacy live. Okay, so he blocks, but he can only block 5 because one of his cards blocks for 2. I play the Glint, and I get another card, and now I can choose between, do I want to play the Energy Potion? I also hit him, and I get another card, and I get a draw, and now I can decide, do I want to play the Energy Potion, do I want to play an E-Strike, or do I want to play Flock of the Featherwalkers? I could do any of those things at this point, which is putting me in a very strong position. So, and I have the go again from that Glint, so I'm thinking about what to do. He doesn't have any cards in hand and probably doesn't have a defense reaction. I did get my +1 counter, but I've gotten 3 extra cards this turn, 2 from the Steelblade Supremacy, 1 from the Glint, and actually I've really gotten 4 if you count the Singing Steelblade. So this has been a really crazy turn for me. I end up deciding I'm going to show the Energy Potion to play the Flock of the Featherwalkers. So this is coming in for another 5 damage, and it does give a Quicken token, which means that I will have go again on my next attack. And then I'm going to put the E-Strike into Arsenal. So now I should have a very scary next turn as well with the go again, the Dawnblade counter, E-Strike ready. I have the Energy Potion, which I can potentially either play for energy or play for its actual cost. Overall, I'm feeling real good about this situation. Okay. It's back to him, and all he can do is draw up after all that defense. I actually make a big mistake here. I forget that I have this Quicken token. And so this is a notable mistake. I have a Quicken token that's giving me an automatic go again, but I sort of left it off to the side instead of putting it in my play area, and I forget that I have it here. So this is a substantial mistake from me, and it does mean that this turn is a lot less good than it could have been. So I end up playing a hit and run and then pitching for a Dawnblade swing for 4. This was wasteful because I actually had that go again already. I didn't need to pitch this, so that was actually a big mistake. And it's unfortunate for me, but that does happen sometimes. So not the best way that I could have done this. And yeah, what I probably should have done here would be to just immediately do the Dawnblade swing. So BigMedSi does point out that I had the Quicken token, but I decide, that was my mistake. I'm just going to let it happen, and we'll see how it plays out. Iron Cairo says, gotta make a call, but great stuff. Unreal around there. I'll watch this wrap up post stream. You're a great warrior. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think there's probably some veteran warriors from New Zealand who are better than me, but I have been doing fairly well with it, at least in the online stuff that I've been doing. So he goes for a overblock again. He overblocks to 8, and I'm gonna respond by playing the E-Strike. So I think I go for an E-Strike 7 here, and then I'm gonna put that springboard somersault into my arsenal, which is gonna put me in a good position for his defense as well. However, I did misplay this turn. I could have pitched and gone for the Steelblade Supremacy as well as the Dawnblade swing, which would have been at strength 6, and maybe he would have overblocked all the way to 9 and used another card in order to try to get around that or similar. And Iron Cairo says, American meta for the win. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I haven't played that much against the New Zealanders. I have played some of them, but I think that overall, because they can play in real stores, they're not as active on Tabletop Simulator. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens as the game progresses and we see more events where those players might clash, whether that be the World Championship obviously being the big one, but also big online tournaments. I believe the upcoming Red Riot Games tournament, which is the one that has major prize pools run by a store out in Canada, I believe that tournament is also going to have some New Zealanders participating, including Matt Rogers, who is considered, I believe, world number 1 by ELO, and also maybe the most, maybe the best player. I don't know if there's an easy way, but he's considered certainly among the best. He was the winner of New Zealand Nationals. So I'm going to lead this turn off with another Ravenous Rabble coming in for 4, revealing a copy of Snatch. I'm looking through my discard pile here, just trying to see what all is going on. In my hand, I do have a Remembrance, which is not very strong, so I am playing this Remembrance because I was worried that he might be doing a Control Ninja, in which case that's important to get some of your big threatening attacks back. I take a quick peek at my arsenal, showing that I have the Springboard Somersault, and I'm just thinking about how to do this next bit. I end up deciding that I'm going to do an Enlightened Strike. I think I do an E-Strike 7 here, and then my plan is to play close the combat chain afterwards and play the Remembrance in order to get the E-Strikes back, as well as the CNC that I played earlier, and just keep up the threat density in my deck. So, fairly basic turn with a Ravenous Rabble for 4 into a E-Strike for 7, but it is going to require him to take more damage or lose more life. It is 17 to 35, and I'm feeling very good right now. You know, I feel like I am far ahead because I have a bit of a tempo advantage here, and I also have a big life total advantage. I also have more armor than him. It's overall feeling pretty good to me, but the game is by no means over. So it's an interesting situation here. Let's see how it develops. He's thinking about how to block against this one. Now, one thing to note, though, is that this turn is not that aggressive. You know, this turn could be an opportunity for him to turn things around and start being the aggressor, because I am doing these attacks, but they're just damage. There's not the on-hit that's going to really threaten him. So he actually drops down to 10 life. So 10 to 35 is feeling pretty good for me. I do end up using that Remembrance, and I'm going to get 2 copies of Enlightened Strike and 1 copy of Command and Conquer. So that is going to allow me to have some of my most threatening, most powerful attack action cards back in the deck, and I'm hoping to use that to just keep the pressure high. Even though playing the Remembrance itself lost me some tempo, not that playing it lost me tempo, but having it in hand, it was just not something that I could use for the aggression. Drawing it there and using that to get those powerful cards is hopefully going to allow me to do some major damage. So yeah, Remembrance, just shuffling 3 action cards from graveyard into the deck, and then it gets banished. Now it's back to BigMedSi, but he does have a big turn. You know, for a while he's been really on the defensive and has barely been doing anything. You know, he's scarcely even had a chance to attack me thus far because he's been defending so heavily. But now it may be his window. This may be his window and his opportunity to come in with an attack of his own and maybe do some damage. Let's see what he has to do here. So looking at my hand, I see that I have a Command and Conquer, I have 2 hit and runs, and a blue overpower. So what I would most like to do with this hand is pitch the blue overpower, play blue hit and run, swing Dawnblade for 3, play yellow overpower, hit and run, and then do Command and Conquer for 8. That would be a very strong turn. So he starts off with a Kadachi hitting me for 1. He then plays a copy of Scar for 4 with Go Again, which I'm not happy to see. But I have an option here to counter it, which is going to be Springboard Somersault from Arsenal. And the reason that I use that here is that's going to stop this attack completely, and it's going to basically negate his Mask of Momentum. Even if he has some trick on this next attack that would allow him to get through a potential block, he now will almost certainly not get his Mask of Momentum trigger, because I've stopped it with my I've stopped his second hit with my Springboard Somersault. And then he does come in with an Enlightened Strike. It's going to be an E-Strike 5 draw card, which is, you know, that's a pretty solid card. Drawing the card there, it's a card that he wants to put in his arsenal, you know, that may well be more worth it than the extra 2 damage that he could get from the selecting the +2. I decide no blocks, and he actually uses his Snapdragon Scalers there, and then throws out a 3rd attack, which is just a Surging Strike Yellow, I believe. Surging Strike Yellow for 4. And so this is going to be another 4 damage potentially. And so I could block against this. The thing that I'm realizing now is that the play that I was hoping to make with the Command and Conquer is not that good, because he doesn't have a card in Arsenal anymore. So my own turn is going to be a little less aggressive and powerful than I thought, though I can still do it. It's just more damage now instead of the potential to get the instead of the potential to get the big attack to break the arsenal. So I do this in a slightly weird way. I'm not sure why I pitched the blue hit and run. I think it would have been better to pitch the blue overpower. But I think at this point I am maybe thinking that I can actually use the blue overpower by using my Tunic, and then pitch the Command and Conquer to get a second swing. So he's going to block for 3. And I think I'm thinking, okay, time to use the blue overpower. Let's push that damage through and then get the second Dawn Blade attack. So I go for the blue overpower, buffing this up to strength 7, which would hit him for 4. We'll see if he has a defense reaction or other option. Strength 7 on the Dawn Blade with Go Again. I'm hoping that I can then just pitch the CNC and swing again for 3, drawing another card out of his hand or letting me score that Dawn Blade counter, which he really doesn't want to let me get with him this low on life. He ends up taking the 4 damage, and then I do pitch and go for the second swing. So coming in with the Dawn Blade for 3, 25 to 6. I'm trying to just put him in the danger zone and keep him there. I actually do think that it might have been better to go for the big Command and Conquer play anyway, though, because it's more raw damage. You know, if I was doing the 8 plus 3, that would be 11 damage. Whereas with this play, I'm only threatening 10 damage. Additionally, if he had a defense reaction that he was saving, it wouldn't be effective against the Command and Conquer. So he does block the second attack. He knows that I don't have a card in hand, so he can just block with 1 card. He pitches and swings a Kadachi for 1 with Go Again. This is going to be just a standard Kadachi swing, I take it. He swings his second Kadachi, and I block this one with my Skull Cap to blunt his momentum. If his last card was a attack, I wanted to make sure that mask was not active. So looking at my hand, I have a Ravenous Rabble, and I also have the option to go for Iron Song Determination here. So I'm thinking, okay, this could be an opportunity to close out the game. I could lead off with the Ravenous Rabble and then pitch Glint and do Iron Song Determination with Hit and Run. I could just lead off with the Iron Song Determination, Hit and Run. The thing is, he does still have some equipment, though, so he likely will be able to stop that one way or another. So I lead off with the Ravenous Rabble, and unfortunately, I actually hit a blue copy of Hit and Run. So this is only 2 with Go Again, and he blocks it with a card that can block for 2. This is the downside of Ravenous Rabble. It's not reliable. Sometimes you are going to hit that blue and only come in for 2 Go Again. And now at this point, it's drying out a card anyway because he's so low on life. But yeah. And I end up deciding that I'm going to save the Iron Song Determination here because I think he's probably still going to be able to block this with his armor. And instead, I'm going to attack like this. He's been over blocking me, and I'm hoping that this attack is going to threaten an attack reaction and cause another over block, which will lower his momentum, at which point I can simply put the Iron Song Determination into Arsenal and then wait for a really big turn to try to burst through his defenses and win the game. So just going for the Hit and Run swing for 3. And if he lets this hit him, I can use my Brave Forge Bracers and then swing again. I'm hoping that the card in hand is going to bluff an attack reaction, draw out an overblock. Let's see if I get the result I'm hoping for. Raven the Red says, floating 2 resources is so hard to play against because it could be so many things. Second swing with bracers, CNC, route, etc. Yeah. So if he blocks with 1 card and I have route, he's just dead. And like that's it. That's game over immediately because I can play the route, come in at strength 6, and send his card back to hand. Now, of course, if he has a defense reaction or a healing card, he would be able to survive that. He ends up going for the Springboard Somersault from Arsenal. So that is slightly risky in that if I had a reaction that wasn't reliant on reprise, like a Out for Blood or similar, I would be able to get through, but he might have another reaction in hand. So I end up not getting through there. I do put the Iron Song Determination in Arsenal, and then he's going to come in with an attack of his own. Now, I'm also glad that I had that Iron Song Determination and didn't play it because it would have easily been stopped by his Springboard Somersault in Arsenal. A defense reaction in Arsenal is really what you want when you're trying to threaten the opponent there. I just take the hit with this Kadachi. He has a second Kadachi, and then he's probably going to have a little bit more. Second Kadachi coming in. I could block this with equipment to negate his mask, but I do have a fair number of options in hand here. I end up deciding that I'm going to do it anyway. I am looking at this point. I'm trying to just put the pressure on and close out the game as soon as possible. So he then comes in with a Surging Strike for 5. I believe it is a red Surging Strike coming in for 5. And so I'm having to worry about what to happen. And that point that Raven the Red made, I want to kind of accentuate that. So he was saying floating 2 resources is so hard to play against because it could be so many different things. Second swing with bracers, CNC, route, etc. That's one of the things that I really like about Warrior, and with this wide Warrior in particular, with the Go Agains and stuff, it's very difficult to play against because you don't know what's going to happen. They might have some attack reactions coming. They might have some defense coming. They might have they might have some attack reactions. They might have, like, they might be playing a potion, doing something to build up. They might just have nothing and be hoping to get a second Dawnblade hit. It's hard to say, and it makes it difficult for the opponent. So he does score the hit, though, gets rid of a Plunder Run in favor of a red Whelming Gust Wave. So this is coming in at strength 4, and if it hits, it will cause him to draw a card. I'm thinking about it. I decide I'm going to block with the CNC that I have in hand, even though I really like this CNC. He doesn't have a card in Arsenal this turn, so it's not going to be that useful. Also, I think we've forgotten this at this point, but he did use his Snapdragon Scalers anymore, and we did not flip that over. I don't really know what happened with that. So I'm noticing it now, because he played it with that, what was it? It was, yeah, he did E-Strike 5, draw a card, and then gave it go again with Snapdragons, and I believe that we missed that at the time. I don't know if he uses it again, or if we catch it before that happens, or what. I do probably want to double block here, because if he hits, he'll get a card draw, which could potentially be another attack, which could potentially be another card draw. And so I'm thinking about it, and I end up deciding that I am going to, I believe, double block with the CNC and the Twinning Blade here. But I'm definitely having a bit of a think about it. I could also just let him have this and hope that it's not that big, and then try to do a big turn on my next turn, playing Hit and Run and Ironsong Determination, pitching the Somersault to give me a swing. I could also break my Tunic here to prevent him from getting... I could break my Tunic here to prevent him from getting that, and then retain my Twinning Blade, allowing me to potentially do a second Dominate attack. But I end up deciding that I'm just going to block with it. So then I do stop his attack, but I've lost some of my momentum here. And I take the counter on Tunic. I'm thinking about how to do this, and, I could just swing. I could go for the CNC first. I could do the Ironsong Determination first. The Ironsong Determination at this point is unlikely to actually land, because he has equipment that he hasn't blocked with. But it might make him use his... If he doesn't have a defense reaction, it will make him use his Tunic to block, or use his Mask of Momentum to block, both of which will downgrade his future capabilities for the game. So that's like at least decent and annoying for him. If he does have a strength 4 defense reaction in hand, though, the situation is going to be a lot worse for me, because he can just use that to negate this, at which point I'm going to be a fair bit behind, in that I will have spent 2 cards and he will have countered it with 1 and still be able to throw out some good aggression. Really, I've spent 3 cards, and then I've also pitched 1. So let's see what he has as his defensive option here. This is not really that good a turn. My main hope is just that I might get some equipment or similar. Looking back on it, I do think it might have been good to block with just 1 card in the Tunic to enable more options here, because then I could have done, for instance, the Hit and Run into the swing with and bluffing the potential defense attack reaction, and then I could have followed that up with CNC. And yes, the CNC wouldn't be threatening Arsenal, but if it was just coming in for 6, at that point, his because of he does not have very much life, he would probably have to block it heavily anyway. Okay, so didn't end up landing, but I did break his Tunic. Overall, I would consider that okay, but not great. Comes in with a Dawnblade for 1, or with a Kadachi for 1. Follows up with a red leg tap for 4 with Go Again. And I have to think, do I want to stop this to deny? I end up just taking this hit, and he has a natural combo here with a yellow Rising Knee Thrust. So this is coming in for 4. If leg tap was the last attack this combat chain, Rising Knee Thrust gains 4 and Go Again. So I could block this. I could overblock this, or I could block this with 1 card plus the Bracer here. The problem with is that if I don't overblock it, he can potentially use his Breaking Scales for the +1, and I think I might actually miss that here and block for exactly 4, which, if so, is a substantial mistake. Debatably, I should have blocked his middle attack for 4. Yeah, so so I'm thinking about it, and I almost block it for 4. But I think I realize what's going on and decide, no, I have to block for 5. So I came really close to doing that, but he would have got me with the Breaking Scales to hit me for 1, at which point he would also get a card draw from his mask, and he could potentially throw out something else. So I almost did the block for 4, which could have led to him getting a substantial advantage, but I saw it and pulled back. My hand here is not very good, but I do have the Iron Song response, so I'm going to pitch and just swing, and I'm hoping to push some damage through if he doesn't overblock. And if he does overblock, I'll put the Iron Song response in arsenal. Another thing that I could also do is I could pitch, I could potentially use my Tunic for the swing, which would mean that I didn't have to pitch and then would have a card in arsenal potentially, even if I played the Iron Song response. But I end up going for the pitch anyway because I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but I think pitching the card is fairly reasonable given that blue hit and run isn't the best card to have in arsenal. There's a chance that he will overblock and I won't be able to play the Iron Song response, and maintaining the Tunic there does let me play a Steel Blade Shunt without having to pitch a card, which can be a very useful capability to have. So Dawnblade coming in here for 3 against him. He's got to think about how he wants to defend against this. I do not have my bolters, of course. So he blocks, I think it's a Sink Below red, I believe, that he uses from hand. So that's going to block 4. So I could play the Iron Song response and hit him for 2. But I think the other question is, do I want to save it and just try to get more value out of it? So I'm going to search his arsenal here, looking for his defense reactions. He's played 1 red Flick Flack. He has not played Sink Below. And do I search for anything else? No. So I'm just going to let him have that and put this card in arsenal with the hopes of using it at a later time when it's more impactful. But that does mean, he does have a 4-card hand here. That's not great. On the plus side, I have a very aggressive hand there with 2 E-strikes, so I'm hoping to turn some stuff around. So as you may have noticed here, he's really making a substantial comeback. Earlier on, I was at like 35 life and he was at 15 or something. That's a really big lead, and he's really been narrowing down that lead with all his Kadachi swings. So the early game was seeming great for me, but the mid game has really gone in a different direction. So he goes for the second Kadachi swing, and I block it with equipment to deny his mask, at which point he follows up with I believe that is a copy of, I believe that's a Rising Knee Thrust again. So I'm thinking about how I want to respond to that. It's a blue Rising Knee Thrust, so I just eat it. It's only 1 damage, and then he's going to arsenal a card. So I despite the fact that I'm a little behind on tempo, I am now able to use that equipment to block. I'm not worried about that attack giving him a draw, and I can now throw out a really big turn of my own. So I end up going for what I think is actually a bit of a mistake here. I don't know why I did this. I go for the Warrior's Valor into Dawnblade swing. I think I erroneously thought that I would be able to play the E-Strike afterwards, but that's actually not available. I do have the Iron Song response in arsenal, which is really good. I can play that to potentially get in. If he does an exact block or he doesn't overblock by 3, I can play that Iron Song response in arsenal and get in. But I think it would have been better if I was going for this route to lead off with an E-Strike 5 maybe. The other thing is that I don't really have the resources to support this line of play, so I'm thinking this is actually a lot worse than I guess I was thinking when I did it. I'm not altogether sure why I did that, and I don't think it's correct. To be fair, this was also like the 10th game that I had played that day, because I had played in the Compete Sport skirmish event that same day, and I actually ultimately won that event, which means that I had to play 6 rounds of Swiss plus 3 rounds top 8. And so this was my 10th game of the day, having played 9 rounds of Flesh and Blood. Admittedly, those were blitz, so they aren't as grueling as Classic Constructed. I said CNC. But yeah, so he goes for 2 red Flick Flacks, coming in for blocking a total of 8 here. That does mean that I can sneak in with the Iron Song response, go up to 9. Because he plays the second Flick Flack from his hand. And I do that, go up to 9. And so I'm hoping to hit him for 1 and then do an E-Strike 7, which I think is just going to be really favorable for my tempo. But he actually has a 3rd defense reaction in hand. So this was a very strong defensive hand from my opponent. But the fact that my turn ends here is in part also caused by my own error, in that I should have led off with one of these E-Strikes before I did the Warrior's Valor play, I believe. So I do make him spend 3 cards, but I don't land the hit, and therefore I don't get the go again. Not the best thing that could have happened for me by any means. I do, however, still have the 2 E-Strikes, so I am in a spot where I'm hoping to do some damage. I know that he is going to be able to threaten me, but I'm going to hopefully just take some damage from these Kadachi and then be in a good spot. So Kadachi 1 coming in for 1. Take it. Kadachi 2 coming in for 1. Take it. And a Flusterfist red coming in, I believe. I believe it is for 4. And so this is really awkward because if this hits, it's going to give him a draw. So I have to decide, is it worth blocking this out? And I think I decide that it is, so I'm going to block with a card in my Tunic, so blocking for 4 to prevent him from getting the draw from his Mask of Momentum. But he then does actually use his Breaking Scale. Okay, so yeah, so we did play this wrong. Unfortunately, he does use his Snapdragon Scalers here. He had already used that earlier in the game, and we didn't flip it over correctly. I actually only realized that just watching this tape now. So he didn't have access to that. He could have used that to hit me for 1 and get his draw, but he couldn't have gotten the go again as he did with the Scalers there. Actually, he doesn't flip it over again. But luckily, it doesn't matter because he doesn't have a card that he can actually play. He just puts the card in Arsenal. Okay, so that could have been worse for me than it was, but it was still an opportunity for him to get some good value out of the Breaking Scales, and it does mean that he gets a trigger from his Mask of Momentum. Raven the Red says, I like double E-Strike into Dawnblade from Tunic with Iron Song for just really awkward blocking. Yeah, that would actually also be pretty sweet. That would be... I think that might be even better than the... Yeah, I think that's actually probably even better, because then it's 10 plus 3, and then I can do another 3. Okay, so... This time, though, I'm going to be able to do E-Strike into E-Strike. So this is going to be E-Strike 5 into E-Strike 7, which is a ton of damage, and that's hopefully going to make him block heavily. He can't afford to take that much damage at this point, especially because I do have that potential option to go for the Steel Blade with the Steel Blade Shunt for the kill. But one thing to note here is that he does have a little bit more life than it looks like because he still has his mask. Now he finally blocks with his mask, but that does mean that... So that does mean that he's able to preserve more of his momentum. So he's blocked with his mask. Now the second one coming in for 7. So 1 card plus mask blocking all 5 damage from the first E-Strike. Second E-Strike coming in for 7. I'm happy that even though we erroneously had the Snapdragon Scalers being used twice, it didn't end up mattering. If he had played... if he had actually played a card with the thing that he drew from his mask, that would have been unfortunate. The way it was, this doesn't really disrupt the gameplay much, although it did maybe make him think differently about his plan than he would have otherwise. So he blocks with 1 card and takes 4, putting him at 2 life. At this point, I'm hoping that I can draw like double Shunt to just kill him and close out the game immediately, because you don't want to be in this situation where you're getting low on life against a ninja. Those Kadachi really start adding up. They really do start adding up. So I have an okay hand. I do have the Iron Song response and the Singing Steel Blade, which means that I have the opportunity to threaten big damage. I don't really have as much energy as I would like, but I could pitch the yellow Singing Steel Blade, Warrior's Valor, swing for 6, potentially with the Iron Song response. He leads off with a Scar for a Scar, which is an excellent card to have here. I end up just taking 3. Or I end up just taking 4, and then he's going to play a Kadachi swing for 1 with Go Again. I'm thinking about this situation. The problem here is that if he has a Razor Reflex, I'm actually just going to die if he plays it, which is pretty scary. So I might have to block this Kadachi, which is also not something that I want to do. And so I end up So what I really should do here, by the way, is look at his discard pile and see if he has any Razor Reflexes left. I end up blocking this one for 1. And then he is going to CNC for 6. That is very unfortunate. For me. So my options are either go to 1, which puts me in the horrible Kadachi, block with 1 card and go to 1, which puts me in the Kadachi zone, or to block with 2 cards, only have 1 card, swing for 3, he blocks it, then he has a 3-card hand. I end up deciding, I believe, that I have to go to 1 here, and that I'm going to try to kill him with my Iron Song response. So now, he went from that situation where he was losing by a huge amount of life to actually winning now. And... So this is indicative of, at least in my opinion, this is indicative of how much these Flesh and Blood games can be won or lost on small things. As we were previously in a situation where I was way ahead, now we're in a situation where that's looking quite dubious. So I'm coming in for a swing for 3. If he doesn't double block this, though, I have the Iron Song response to kill him. So I'm hoping I can potentially do that to close out the game, but we're going to see what happens here. Both of us have used almost all our armor. I do have one block left. It's my Arcanite Skullcap. Because I'm at 1 and he's at 2, if he does block this one and live, his first Kadachi swing can be blocked by my Skullcap, though if he has a Razor, he can still kill me. So a pretty scary situation. He double blocks, blocking for 6. And so I'm just going to Arsenal the response. That does mean that now if I get a chance to attack, I still have that response to threaten him. But the question is if. I know that he can be very aggressive now. So he goes for an E-Strike. I'm actually kind of happy about this because it's at least a known quantity. I think it's an E-Strike 7 here. So this E-Strike 7 means that I'm going to have to block with 2 cards that block for 3, plus my Skullcap in order to live, or 1 3 and 2 2s. And unfortunately, while I do potentially have a strong hand, I need to block with both of my 3 blocks. Because that Razor Reflex and the copy of Snatch only block for 2, I can't use those unless I want to block with both of them, which means that I'm going to have to block in an awkward way that isn't going to allow me to do the hand that I most wanted. So if I could have blocked with the Spoils of War and the Snatch and had the Singing Steelblade to pitch and swing, I could then potentially use both Razor and Iron Song Response to get through a defense and get the win. But as it stands, I'm only going to be able to have one of those attack reactions because I'm going to have to block with both of my 3 block cards. This puts me in a very awkward situation. And, you know, that's one of the downsides of having these cards that block for 2 against an aggressive deck. Earlier, this was kind of an issue for him, but now it's an issue for me. One other thing that I could do is just block with 3 cards. You know, if I'm saying, you know, the 2-card hand isn't better than the 3-card hand, may as well block with 3. That's what I end up doing. I decide that the Razor Reflex is the one card that I'm going to keep because I can pitch it and it might come in handy later. I'm not sure that that's correct, but that is what I do. Okay, so now he is going to draw on up. I'm going to just pitch and swing. If he doesn't double block, I have the Iron Song Response. Let's see what happens here. Swinging in. And so that Arsenal card, because it is the Iron Song Response, is able to exert a substantial amount of threat. I'm also hoping... I would really like to draw a double Shunt hand, which would allow me to just kill him if he swings his Kadachi at me and doesn't have a healing item. So that would be pretty sweet if I do get that opportunity. But we'll have to see what happens. One life to 2 life. Very intense situation. Raven the Red says, in a sense, blocking with 3 now is like saving a card's block on a Kadachi later on by saving the Skullcap, if that makes sense. Yeah, I agree with you. There's a little bit of an exemption, which is that if I do 1 damage to him but not 2, then the Skullcap is now off. And then there's one other issue, which is that if I had the ability to block for 2 plus Skullcap while giving me a hand that could play 2 attack reactions, I would have done that. But because I couldn't, I ended up blocking with 3 instead. Because if I was able to threaten 2 attack reactions, then I put him in a situation where he has to either overblock with 3, which means that his next turn is worse and a lot more predictable, or just risk just getting killed. So that's going to be pretty interesting. And he's thinking about how to block here. You know, even though he has the tempo advantage and the life advantage, being at 2 life is still in the danger zone for dying to an attack reaction. So he really has to think, you know, what's going on here? How do I want to defend against this warrior? Let's see what's going on here. So we're doing some Arsenal searches, I believe, trying to see just what options are left. Or I'm sorry, not Arsenal. I'm trying to see, have I played my route? So I have my route. I have one of my blue overpowers. I'm just trying to see, you know, what options I'm going to have remaining in terms of attack reactions also. One of the benefits of playing with Tabletop Simulator instead of webcam is that it makes searching discard much easier, whereas normally it's quite annoying. Now he's searching his discard pile, trying to see what stuff he has left. This has been a prolonged game. You know, I had a great advantage at first, but he has been making a huge comeback, and now I might be in some trouble here, but he does need to be careful or I'm going to get him with one of my sneaky reactions. Let's see whether or not he goes for the overblock or what he's going to do here. He's thinking about his options. If he blocks with only one card and doesn't have a healing item or defense reaction, I can kill him with that Iron Song response. But if he blocks me up to 6, the situation might look very different. The other thing is that if he blocks me at 5 and I play the Iron Song response, I'm at 1 life and he's at 1 life, which means that my skull cap is off, but it also means that I can potentially kill him with a Steel Blade Shunt. So that's a very odd little situation there, where I might lose the skull cap block but gain the opportunity for the shunt kill, and I should be seeing a Steel Blade Shunt pretty soon. So he ends up blocking me for 5 here. So he's blocking with it's some combo card and with a Plunder Run, and I go for the Iron Song response, pushing him to 1 life. 1 life to 1 life. I'm just thinking here, maybe I can get him with the Steel Blade Shunt game plan. Let's see what happens. I do draw a Steel Blade Shunt, and he's going to come in here pitching the Energy Potion, 1 with Go Again. The problem is if I play the Steel Blade Shunt, I have to pitch another one of my cards, and if he has a healing item, I'm in trouble. I go for it, Steel Blade Shunt. Steel Blade Shunt coming in, and I believe he does not have it, and that is the game. Yeah, his last card is an Art of War. So he was talking about the awkward hand that he had last turn, where because of that Art of War and Potion not being able to block, that 5 block was actually the best that he could do. So he was not able to overblock, but he could have gone for the he could have gone for like a Panic Art of War with the discard effect to draw 2 more cards and hope to get enough block to fully block it. But ultimately he can't, he didn't do that. He went for the 5 block, and I was able to close out the game with that Steel Blade Shunt. So that was the game. Very interesting situation. It came really close. This was myself versus BigMedSi, and so he actually could have gone. So the rest of this video, we're just like looking at what that would have looked like. So he's like, okay, I would have pitched that. I would have played the Art of War. I would have drawn 2 cards, and he would have actually drawn his last defense reaction, which is a Sink Below. So he could have blocked with the card, and then if I play the Iron Song response, he would have the Sink Below to counter it. Then he can do 2 Kadachi swing with that potion. I would have been able to block one of them with my Arcanite Skullcap, and then another one with a card, and then we would see what would happen on my own turn and his next turn. So the Art of War plan might have actually saved him there. It would have at least prolonged the game. But he went. It might have also just immediately lost the game though, if he did not draw stuff that could block or that was good in that situation. So yeah, very interesting situation. Ultimately, I do take the win, but BigMedSi gave me a real run for my money there, with a huge comeback, going from like 35-15 or whatever it was, all the way down to 1 life to 1 life. And me playing a little desperately and barely managing to pull out the victory with that Steel Blade Shunt at the end to close out the game. So very intense game, good game, BigMedSi. That was in my opinion a very fun game. Raven the Red in chat saying, "Oh wow, these blocks are very awkward. Those blocks are very awkward. Great back and forth game as most FAB games are." Yeah, this was definitely a very interesting match. We had interesting stuff going on in terms of how both players were blocking, both players were attacking, the kind of ebb and flow of who had the tempo and momentum and what the different attacks that were being used were, all that sort of stuff. Ultimately, I did prevail, but it was a great game, and it really could have been. I really felt like, I was in trouble. I was definitely thinking, he might get me. I was feeling pretty confident at first, but, in that mid game, I wasn't dealing that much damage to him. He was whittling me away, and the situation suddenly became a lot different. So, yeah, very exciting game. And so that does mean that I am the winner of the UK Online League Season 2. I actually won both seasons of that, but as the UK community has been growing, they're going to be offering some more prizes, and the third season of that league is actually only going to be open to UK players. So if you're in the UK and you're listening to this, check out the online league. There's a TTS League chat channel on the UK Flesh and Blood community Discord. I suggest that you check that out. If you're in the UK, I thought this league was a lot of fun. Good chance to get some games in, and that is with the classic constructed format. So I know a lot of events have been Blitz recently, so doing some CC as well is a nice mix. I think classic constructed is a little deeper than Blitz personally, offers some more engaging opportunities in some ways, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things develop. So if you're in the UK, I definitely recommend checking out this league. And I will hopefully, while I will not be playing in the third season, since it will be UK players only, I do hope that I'll have the chance to stream some of those games and get some more coverage of the event. So yeah, that's going to do it for this stream, guys. I'm going to be back on Thursday with some more Flesh and Blood content, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be the next scheduled stream. Might do some unscheduled streaming as well if there's some cool stuff going on before then. Yeah, that's the stream for today, guys, and thank you for watching. We will be back later with more Flesh and Blood content. I might do some Star Wars Legion stuff as well. I gotta tell you, my interest in Legion is a lot less than my interest in Flesh and Blood right now. One last thing, if you want to check out some tournament reports for skirmish games, check out towernumber9.com right there in the bottom right corner. You can just, that's not a link, that's just how it's spelled. But if you go to that blog, I wrote 3 tournament reports in 3 days for 3 skirmish events and an armory event that I played with a very different Dorinthea deck, a tall Dorinthea deck designed to fight Ira. And you can find out how I did there, as well as an overview of the deck. I got the deck list in the first article. I got the strategy in the first article, so that should be an interesting thing as well. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you for watching. We will be back later with more Flesh and Blood content. And yeah, I will catch you guys later.